In this video, let's talk about some additional navigation options that take us more in depth with Blender. First, let's collapse our toolbar in our viewport so that we have some more real estate. Remember, it's the hotkey T. Then let's go to full screen by hitting Control up arrow. Now, we've covered moving around in the 3D viewport and shifting views using our numpad. Let's have a look at what the even numbers on the numpad do for us. Our even numbers, 2, 4, 6, and 8, will allow us to pan and orbit within our scene. Let's try this. If we click numpad 2 repeatedly, we can orbit our camera downwards in our scene. Likewise, pressing 8 repeatedly will orbit your camera up. And of course, as you would expect, 4 will orbit you left and 6 to the right. We can also use these controls to pan our scene. Just like the odd numbers for our view selections on our numpad, our control key serves a secondary function here as well. Our camera movement remains the same, but holding control allows us to pan rather than orbit. So Control 2 will pan us down, Control 8 will pan our camera up, Control 4 will pan us left, and of course Control 6 to the right. The last of our number shortcuts, mind you, I mean the actual numbers on the numpad, not the rest of the numpad area, is 0. 0 will switch us to our camera's view. It will also highlight the render area of the camera. Now, while we're discussing a render view, let's learn a couple of new hotkeys we can throw in there. If we hit F12, this will give us an actual render of our scene. As you can see, it matches the camera view that we were looking through, even with the highlight area. Our other hotkey is F11. We can hit F11 to return to our view. Now, if we navigate away from our camera, it will continue to render from that camera regardless of our 3D view in the viewport. Let's try that. So we hit F12, and you see we get the same render that we got before. We hit F11 and get out of there, we return back to where our view is in the viewport. Alright, returning to our numpad, we've seen that 0 will move us to a camera view. But what if we want the camera to come to us? We might have our scene perfectly set and are very happy with our position, and we don't want to move about and fiddle up our camera trying to get back to where we were to get a perfect render. Well, Blender's accounted for that too. Now, you might be quick to jump to Control 0. It would kind of make sense, but this is going to have an unexpected reaction. It will treat our selected cube as the camera, or whatever else you may have selected in your scene. That's not what we wanted. The hotkey we're looking for is Control Alt 0. This will move the camera to the position and orientation of our current view. That's an important one, so let's recap that. 0 will take us to the camera. Now let's navigate away. Control Alt 0 will bring the camera to us. Lastly, in navigation, I want to talk about the home key. Now in the previous lesson, we learned that Shift-C would return us to our scene. While this is true, I may have led you on a bit of a goose chase. That's not its core function, but rather a result of its action. Let's play with this so we can see what's really happening. First, let's move our 3D cursor away from the center. Now let's pan away from our scene as though we had gotten lost. Using Shift-C, we are returned to our scene, but what happened to our cursor? Well, it was returned to world space 000. That's the real function of Shift-C. It's only the side effect being a return to your scene at 000. But what if our cursor is positioned exactly where we want it, and then we get lost? we need another method for getting back to our scene. That hotkey is our home key. The home key is our true zoom extents function. Alright, we've gotten pretty deep into scene navigation. Let's review what we've learned the last couple videos. Starting with the numpad, our odd numbers of 1, 3, and 7 provide us with our front, right, and top views. Holding Control while selecting them will give us back, left, and bottom views. Our even numbers of 2, 4, 6, and 8 allow us to orbit our scene. Using Control changes our orbit to panning. 5 in the center of our numpad allows us to toggle between perspective and orthographic views. 0 is our camera view, pulling us to look through our camera where it is currently placed. Control-Alt-0, never forget that Alt, Control-Alt-0 pulls the camera to our view. We also learned about F11 and F12. F12 gives us a render of our scene from our camera's perspective, and F11 returns us to our view, whatever that may be. Shift-C will bring our 3D cursor to 0, 0, 0, with the side effect of returning us to our scene. Our home key, or zoom extents, brings us back to a whole scene view without affecting our cursor. Now, I realize I'm beating all of the hotkey info to death just a bit, but it's with good reason. Stick to the reviews and really work with memorizing your hotkeys. When they become second nature, Blender becomes very fast to work in. Alright, well, you know what time that means it is now? It's time for us to quiz. So here are your quiz questions for this video. What are the odd numbers on the numpad for? And the even numbers? What is the hotkey to bring the camera to your view? What is the hotkey to render the camera view? What hotkey will center us back at our scene without affecting our 3D cursor? That's without affecting our 3D cursor. Alright, I hope that went well. If not, please go back and review. Pounding this information home is the strong foundation that we'll need to become Blender pros. See you next time.